let me just ask you though, like when you watch a movie like this, like, and
Mhm.
it's just, is it just as a Chicagoan, is it just like the most exciting thing? Because like Philly, we have like some
Sure.
things, like we have some movies, and like we have like Silver Linings Playbook for my area and stuff. Like,
Mhm.
but there's just nothing like an 80s Chicago movie. I don't know what it is.
Running Scared was a little bit before my time in the sense that like it came out in 86. I was 4 years old, so I wasn't very like culturally aware of it at the time of its release. But I will say that it's not a movie that people talk about a lot when they talk about Chicago movies here, which is a shame because I think it's one of the best ones. I'm repeating something I heard Patrick say once. But this movie really nails that like post holidays winter vibe where it's just like it's dirty snow
Yeah.
and it's gross and everybody's just like oh like in coats and scarves and gloves all the time and they look miserable and things like that really nails the early part of a calendar year in the Chicagoland area. I love this movie. I love it every time I see it even more. This is such an unusual cop movie in a lot of ways. One in particular is Gregory Hines and Billy Crystal are not conventional casting
No.
for two kind of bad boys type cops, but
Yeah.
they completely work.
They
Like
work so well in this movie. Their chemistry
there's
is so
never any moment where their lack of machismo like makes it seem like they're play acting or anything like
yeah.
that. They're so charismatic and funny. It's like really strange to see Billy Crystal be like 100% believable as like a real police officer, not just like a wisecracking like guy like in Forget Paris. He's like the wisecracking NBA ref or something
Right.
like that, where like that's his primary function. And then I, I mean, this also has been just kind of a period of me rediscovering how great Gregory Hines is in Waiting to Exhale. He's got an amazing like supporting part, and in this, he's just effortlessly charismatic. And like even in something like The Muppets Take Manhattan, he has a cameo as just like a roller skater in the park, and he's like interrupts like a scene where like Kermit and Piggy are like fighting, and she says something about like him two timing her, and then Gregory Hines, just without skipping a beat, has like the perfect delivery. He's just like, "You two timing her," and he's like talking to Kermit and stuff, and it's like so charming. And I miss him so much. I wish he was still around.
And it's what's really funny is like, I mean, obviously, the closest analog to this that I'm thinking of is Gene Wilder and Richard Pryor, right? Like, that's obviously, I'm being reductive, obviously, but like that's the closest I'm thinking of. And like when you see them together and they're great, it always feels like they're like each one of them is like one upping the next one. Like each one it has their like wild energy, they're going up and up. These two, I feel like just meld really well with each other. Like there's so many scenes in the movie where the movie will get distracted from its plot because it's got something for them to do together. But whereas oftentimes that kind of takes away from how compelling the movie is. I those are the scenes I like. Those are those little asides, the moments where it was just the two of them riffing on something together, where they folded over and melded into each other's like rhythms and like cadence so well. They weren't just like shouting at each other or like one guy was the wild guy and one guy was the subdued guy. They were just like you could tell they were friends. You could tell they had a rapport with each other, that they were intelligent, that they were thoughtful. Like they had those great buddy cop moments where like, Crystal could sort of give Hines a look and Hines would give the same look back to him and they would immediately know what to do. Like those kinds of things that you just can't fake. And even comedies now, even the like you think, Apatow comedies and stuff where guys are riffing, guys are improvising and things like that. It doesn't ever come out this way. You know what I mean? There's a different flavor to this kind of, even if it's improv, there's a different flavor to this kind of improv that we just don't really get anymore.
Yeah, I mean, and JB always mentions like movies having bits of business, and that's kind of what makes them memorable. And this movie just has so many
Yeah.
moments of that. My favorite is maybe when the two cops go to Jimmy Smits's building, and I think they're talking to like a relative or something like that, and they're looking for him. And this little kid is just flipping Gregory Hines the bird, and like to cap the scene off, like Gregory Hines is just like keeping tally of every time the kid does it, and then he's just like, I gotta fight back.
He insists on going back to flip the kid off at the
Yeah.
very end. I like the bit where they go to the bank and apply for a loan with rollerblades.
That whole Key West sequence is just enchanted and should be in every movie. Like, it's 45 minutes into the movie. It's got like a cop rhythm, and
Yeah.
then just we take this vacation with them, and it's wonderful. And it's like one of the best commercials you could ever have for Key West, Florida, because like I just love this montage. I mean, it's set to like the greatest song ever with Sweet Freedom by Michael McDonald, and like every time they cut to like them riding on their little Vespas or motorcycles or what have you, like there's like different women with them and stuff like that, and it's just they're just having fun in the sun and everything. It's great.
This is just what it's like to be Billy Crystal and Gregory Hines in 1986. Like, I texted my mom while I was watching this movie because I was like, Mom, was Billy Crystal sexy? And she was like, I never thought so. But I was like, there must have been a time where he was just the sexiest man alive. He just walked in and he could just, but that's even like when Harry Met Sally energy too, where he just like, so you want to go to bed? You know, like he would just, and it would just be like work, you know, just beautiful.
I had that when I watched Mr. Saturday Night recently, where I was thinking of like, you know, this is that was the movie that you get for having a string of hits for a studio, because he was coming off of like City Slickers and When Harry Met Sally and stuff. But like to your point, in this or like When Harry Met Sally, it's like he's a sexual option for Meg Ryan, and it's like not something you would laugh off the screen. No. And in this one, I mean, I don't know if I'm getting like a man crush on Billy Crystal or something like that, but like when they're on the boat and they're shirtless and stuff like that, it's like I'm like, he's fucking ripped.
Yeah.
I'm like,
get it, man.
I'm like, what do you think of Jimmy Smits as the villain in this?
I always love to see Jimmy Smits. You hate to see him
Me
play.
Too. Yeah.
You always hate to see him play kind of a stereotypical role like this, but he's just, I mean, again, we're talking sexy men here. He's just dripping. Like, it just like, whew, like Smith's like, ooh, good Lord.
Yeah, I mean, like,
it's like, I'm the first Spanish Godfather. And I'm like, yes, you are, my friend. Yes, you are. But like, it's a movie. It's a movie that will take its time to have a set piece where Jimmy Smits insists that they throw him their pants. And it's a whole bit of business for like 3 to 5 minutes of the whole pants thing. And then they're taking their pants off and they got the long johns underneath. And it's just like such a, and then there's the whole thing with the car when they get the car refitted into the super taxi James Bond car.
Yeah.
Then there's
we gotta talk about the car chase on the L, because like I am like just so impressed by Peter Hyams and the writers and whoever put together this movie, that's not your final set piece. That's the penultimate set piece, because it is insane, even by like 2022 standards. Like conceptually and like the way that it's shot is so impressive, and it plays out over like the span of like 6-7 minutes. And I'm just like, yeah, I guess on an empty L track they would get that far and stuff like that. But I don't think like those set pieces, it's not like a letdown at the end when they get to the state building. Like the state building is still a really good action sequence. Yeah, it's so weird that action comedy, like I mean, the prime offender is like, I'll think of like the ride along movies, where it's like they have no interest in the action part of it. It's all about the comedy. And I think it's crazy that like two guys who are more inherently comedic, like a Hines and like a Crystal, they really, really cared about the action in this movie. And like, that's what makes the comedy works, because it's foundationally like a good action movie. And they're not just like playing it safe or poking fun at stuff and like where you can't take the plot seriously. Like it feels like a real crime movie, you know, just a fun one.
We have to talk about Joey Pants though. Obviously we have to talk about
we got Mohawk
Joey Pants with the parakeet mohawk, which I think was pretty cool. What accent is he doing?
He's doing the Pants accent.
Is that okay? Because he sounded a little off to me. I wasn't sure. He seemed to be slipping in and out of his native Jersey accent. I wasn't sure.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, like, I think with Chicago, like, as long as it's some sort of like tinge of an ethnic group in some way, you're good. Like it doesn't matter if like you go hard into the Chicago accent. Sometimes like in The Fugitive, if you're listening to like the newscasters and stuff, like they're real newscasters, so you can hear like Chicago and like stuff like that. They get like real into it. But like if you've got like you kind of sound Greek, you kind of sound Italian, you kind of sound Jewish, you kind of sound, like Polish or something like that. Like it works because like Chicago is great because it's so culturally rich in that way. So yeah, I didn't bat an eye. Like he just sounds like
Just
city guy. So yeah.
no, there's so many fun things about it. And again, like in terms of the story, the plot, you've got the two, you've got the Jimmy Smits thing, you've got the bar sequence, you've got the two rookie cops who show them up on the heist the first time, and then they end up having
and Stephen Bauer,
train them, but they keep running into the scene going, hey, you're supposed to train us. And they go, too bad, the movie's going this way. And they're like, well, all right, well, let's keep up with them then. Let's chase after this movie.
It is kind of weird that like they're undercover cops, so you would think that they have a certain level of like career success, but then like they have to be flunkies to get trained by the two guys who just like are the jokesters of the
it feels like they had like Hines had like, I think I generally know what I want to do, and there's like an element of like cop movie comedy. I know what I want to handle, and every now and then something would poke its way through, and then you kind of forget about it. But it never really matters that the movie is kind of it's kind of plotted not a little haphazardly. It's really fun at the end. I like Billy Crystal giving his ex-wife shit about the dentist that she's gonna marry. Do you think he plays the music at home or the same music does in the elevator? In the office and all that.
And Dan Hedaya is awesome he's not reinventing the wheel, but like he made a fucking great wheel. Like
there's something about seeing Dan Hedaya walk into a police precinct, all just like, like get this man a salami sandwich. Like
I wish they made more movies together, even if it's not Running Scared 2. I wish that Hines and Crystal had paired up more times, but
because Crystal doesn't stay in the cop. Does he do another cop movie? He doesn't do it.
No, I think at the time, I'd have to go back to look at some of his filmography around this time, but I mean, he kind of becomes the Billy Crystal persona that we sort of know pretty soon after this. Like it was like he was a stand-up, very popular, comic relief, Running Scared, Princess Bride, and then like hooked up with Rob Reiner, and then kind of became like Columbia Pictures like go-to comedic actor. And then that started that whole run with like And Harry Met Sally, City Slickers, and then he became kind of its own brand, doing Mr. Saturday Night, City Slickers 2, like Forget Paris, like all that stuff.
He could have done more with this. I really think he could have done more.
He could have. It's weird because like I say this as a fellow Jewish man. I think like maybe Jewish men of a certain ilk, like a me or a Billy Crystal, have kind of like a sexiness shelf life, and like when you get to a certain age, you kind of just look like everybody's Jewish uncle. And you don't look like the Italian cop from Chicago anymore.
You and Billy are both gorgeous forever.
I just so wholeheartedly recommend this movie to anybody who hasn't seen it. It's so great, and it's everything. It's like this hidden gem buddy cop movie that I think, unless somebody's sort of like curating it or introducing you to it, like Patrick did for me, after like I knew of it for such a long time, but he programmed it for one of his like birthday movie marathons. And I think it was for his 40th birthday where he did like a 24-hour marathon, and people were coming in and out. And I like showed up at like 4 a.m. to watch like the final leg of this marathon. And I think this was the movie at like 6.
Nice.
And the whole time I'm just like, this is the greatest start to a day I've ever had. And not to like go to my usual laments about like how movies used to be and everything, but it's striking when you watch Running Scared to realize like how much it's about people and behavior, and like just kind of the music of banter and things like that. And I think that's such a miss in modern movies, is we are all focused on like plot and function and like certain tropes and things like that.
It would require the actors being on set at the same time to build cadence and rhythm and rapport.
And bring back movies to Chicago. Like I think that's more on maybe like the Illinois Film Office, but like and tax breaks and things like that. But I, they captured a real moment in time of the 80s and early 90s, or actually throughout most of the 90s of shooting in the city, and it's something that I greatly miss.
All right, so next week is what do we have next week?
Yellow.
Giallo. We see we're pulling like heavy cards this June exploitation. I'm telling you.
Yeah, I'm firmly out of my depth when it
Yeah.
comes to giallo of all Italian horror subgenres, especially this one. So I will
Should we invite
defer to
Pat?
you if you have a selection. Otherwise, I kind of want to watch just one of the best ones.
Okay. We'll watch one of the
So
best ones. I'm sure we'll be consulting with Patrick on this, so
yeah,
maybe we can convince him to join us next week. We'll
he's
see.
our giallo consigliere.
Yeah,
So
yeah. He
yeah.
will make the best decision. But we will be back for Giallo Day. Until next
Mhm.
time.
Um, sweet freedom, shine your light on me. You are the magic. You're the one thing I ever need.
Don't pretend like you don't understand.
I should know this.